Hi everyone, it's Arjun here, Head of Research at InvestorKit. And today I've got Leanne here with me, who's a valued client and friend of ours, and thought we'd spend today's session just to go through the journey. Leanne's journey has been incredibly successful. Her and Barry have together worked on creating a portfolio over the last few years of 9 properties. This is across residential and commercial, and also across 3 states. This portfolio together in such a short time period has created a 6-figure passive income with so much more opportunity ahead as well. Without further ado, I thought I'd introduce Leanne. Leanne, how are you?
Good, Arjun, and yourself?
Very well, thank you. And again, thanks for your time here and having this session here with me to go through the journey. I'm sure many who are listening in want to achieve these sorts of results, but at the same time, I guess we could start off with where it all started. If you do go back to when we first connected, what was the sort of on switch for you that made you go, hey, you know what, this is the time to get something going and get started on this journey of scaling a property portfolio?
Yeah, Arjun, I remember when I was first looking into it, it took me quite a while to have to do my research and I guess I really was very concerned. I live remote, so I live on a cattle station, and I don't have the capacity to go look at things. And yeah, I was a bit concerned of taking the first step. And anyway, I just happened to stumble across one of your advertisements, and it offered that 3-hour session to have a chat. And it was from that discussion that we had, I realised that I'd stumbled across a perfect companion and team member to start the journey.
And when it came to the journey, was there something particular going on in life for you where you felt that, hey, from a start in the journey, sure, I found the right team around me, but was there a certain aspiration for you that started that was driven by something, whether it be generational wealth or passive income creation? What was the core driver for you to take this much action in such a short time?
Yeah, the core driver for me was that we've been on the land here on this property for, at the time, it would have been about 16 years. And the cattle industry is a fairly volatile industry. You're very susceptible to the markets, and you can't really control a lot of things. And there's always the threat of disease and other issues. Like they have the live export shut down. Things can really impact your business. So our key driver was to go off farm, and but then that off farm had to produce income, and because I wanted that income to be self-producing, I can then long term continue to grow that portfolio on its own accord. And then structurally, then that's separate to this business. So should something happen to our business, we have something to fall back on. And then also it was also all done in correlation with succession planning, in that the way I set things up was, we have 3 boys, and the way I set things up was so that we could easily split those assets up into the future.
Yeah, look, that makes a lot of sense, because I think, in business, sometimes I feel it's a very head down, you're onto it and the blinkers are on and you're so focused. But then you get a moment to sit back, which sounds like you and Barry did together, and you get, hold on a minute, let's go look at how we, I guess, secure this wealth that we're building from a business, create generational wealth, but at the same time, diversify income streams. So appreciate you sharing that, Leanne. When you started the journey, what I found quite interesting is that many people tend to, take very soft baby steps in property investing. And they also have this whole world of commercial that's so foreign to them, because they're in residential and they know the touch, feel, the home, going to a friend's house, living in a home. How did you feel you were able to, I guess, how were you able to connect so well with the 2 worlds of residential and commercial, but also the idea that it perhaps doesn't have to be baby steps?
Yeah, with the residential commercial aspect, I think I was possibly more comfortable with the commercial side because of running this business and living in that space. and also the returns. I was very much, it was all about the returns because I wanted this to be a portfolio that was self-perpetuating. And so that was the initial comfort spot. And the residential for me was actually a little bit unsure because I guess, I've been so long since I've lived in any sort of city life that, haven't really, I guess I'm not connected as much with that aspect. And so drew very much on your strength and knowledge and knowing in that space to have the confidence to go down that path. But I also knew that I needed to balance up with both, because if I just went one side, things in the commercial world you can have a long term where you don't have people renting your space. And I really got to learn a lot in our journey to realize then I've actually probably shifted a little bit more back to the residential side now to progress forward as we move forward.
Understood. On that learning piece, you experienced a whole bunch of things on this journey. You've experienced multiple states, residential, as we mentioned, commercial, off market, on market, buy and hold, buy and renovate, then hold, and then also a vacancy in commercial and then re-tenanting it.
Yeah.
Talk about a journey, hey? If you look back at these few years and you look at that learning, how invaluable has that been to have a learning environment, but one that's so not on your own, like you feel like you can be on it with someone else to handheld and support? And just on that note, you've been an absolute, you've been someone who's very much focused on building a team. So I guess how has that team building plus companionship on the journey aided your education and learning along the way?
Yeah. Like my personality to start with I would not have the capacity on my own to have dealt with any of that at all. And I just recall, I can remember trying to make our first decision on our first commercial property. And for me, I was sort of trying to dot every I and cross every T, and you were covering all that with all the information you're giving me. However, I remember you saying, I remember even where I was sitting and you're telling me how, it's still, you can just do so much and be as prepared as you can. However, things evolve and things change. And so I went with the flow of that and realized that that's right. The research that you offer and the support and the hand holding such for someone who had no idea. However, I had the business knowledge, so I knew so long as my goals were met, I was willing to take that first risk on that first property. And then when it all came through and I realized that you just deal with things, and that's what we do in our business anyway, and you do in life. And so that enabled me then to deal with all those things, and particularly, like you're talking about buying and then not having someone in the leasing the property, that was a little bit confronting. And however, because we'd been on a journey together, I knew the process and I just trusted in the process, and it's just every time it's come out, I've come out on the winning side every time, of any issue that we've been dealt with. And I think, Arjun, with the learning process, the key reason for me to go with you initially was that you listened. I had this big conversation with you about my goals, my ideas, my goals personally as well as financially, and where I want to go and not. And so I was just focused on Queensland for a start, not realizing, oh my gosh, going interstate. And but you listened, and then you put your knowledge into what I needed, and so that expanded me quite quickly, that's what enhanced my ability to go from not having the capacity to even start to then going through all those things that we went through on our journey.
Yeah, no, appreciate you sharing, because there's been a whole bunch of learning on that, and that's where I guess it takes me to another point, which is you've also had all of these not in sight, B, across 3 states, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe you've set foot in any of them, or perhaps some of them you have right now, but perhaps none of them. Have you really set foot in any of them just yet?
Yeah, I've been the couple in Brisbane. I've been in
Yeah.
one, just seen one from the outside. But yeah, there's a few I haven't set foot in. No, that's right.
And so being so connected, but at the same time disconnected to the process, where do you feel that skill set for you comes from to just, at the end of the day, treat it like an investment? And do you have any other tips for those who might be on the journey where they're trying to scale, but I guess they sometimes feel a bit too attached to that tangible piece of property?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that team, and the way to create wealth is the team around you. Is how I view it, and you've got to connect. You've got to find the people who you connect with and who you can relate with, and so they've got the knowledge, the know-how in the area that you want to specialize in. However, they're talking in your language as such, and so that's what I've found has been what's enabled us to grow, is because I'm tapping into people who are specialists in that area, who we connect with, who can offer me a new perspective, and also who allows me to have a conversation with them. So you can bring up issues that are confronting or not a positive for either party, and you just have a conversation about it. You deal with the situation and you move forward, and that for me has been the success of why we've been able to grow so quickly.
I guess one thing on that growth and being so quickly, pandemic, it hit our shores, and everyone was paralyzed in terms of the idea of, should I do something or should I not do something? There's a lot of information coming from everywhere, and you've got this team around you. What was the driving force for you? And I guess the reasons, when you break it down, as to why that didn't matter and it was business as usual, considering there's so much going on in the world?
Yeah, it was our conversation, Arjun, that we had, that was the supporting role for me to continue, because like you said, there was some very negative news coming in, and I was getting quite concerned, and we'd already had done a few purchases, and anyway, and actually even in some of the commercial purchases, we were considering some areas, and I sort of wasn't quite comfortable with it, and so that was another thing too, is that if you've got something that if you're not quite comfortable, it doesn't settle with you, then don't buy it. And it's proven with the COVID epidemic, because there's a couple of places I was thinking of buying, and they all had to shut down for a long time during COVID. So whereas all our commercial businesses still functioned, and then so we had done some commercial, we'd done some residential, and we were on to our second residential when COVID hit, and it was our discussions that we had, Arjun. If you recall, we were talking about like, obviously, no matter what happens, people still need somewhere to live, and then also then looking at the clientele who are going to reside in those premises. Well, then during the pandemic, there are certain, like your nurses or your doctors, there's certain people that will still have to work no matter what, and so knowing those two staples within a pandemic, then we could continue. And so and we had opportunity, and luckily we did, because we got in before everything went crazy, and it was that conversation, and that was only coming from you and your knowledge and your analysis of the big picture, that enabled me to just then I had no questions after that point, because I realized those comments were certainties.
And, from one point of a time of our life that was crazy, which is the COVID pandemic, we now move to a second point, which is all this talk of global recession, interest rate cycle changes, and so forth. And I wonder if you feel the same about this, but I actually think of a portfolio that isn't scaled versus one that is scaled, one that's diversified versus one that's not. I actually feel, looking at your portfolio, it's a greater position to be in to actually have more debt across more assets in times like these, because you're able to fortify it in so many ways, versus perhaps someone who took a baby step into investing and just had one, and now they're relying on everything around this one asset. How do you look at that now as we go through this new cycle, feeling as prepared as you do now and as comfortable as you do with the cash flows that you've generated in this portfolio?
Yeah, so because, like you're saying, we've created a six-figure cash flow coming from these purchases, and so moving forward into this recession threat or concept that's coming up, and interest rate rises, with our portfolio, I've got there are some that are interest only and some are P&I, and even at this point in time, the P&I is producing income, but also, we've been producing income for so many years already, and so I've got a lump sum of money there ready to go to either buy again, or I could hold, and that's a backup should other areas in our lives need that support there. And if I had have only just done one or two properties, I would not be feeling I'd be very concerned at this point in time, because there's not much to fall back on. I'm going to have to fall back on our business, and yet again, you're putting pressure on your business. And the idea of the investing was to take that pressure off. And so, we're in a position that if things do go pear-shaped in the world for a period of time, I can just sit tight and it will self-fund itself, and I don't have to rely on any other source of income. And I can also change up the way the debts are, or I can pick and choose. I have options, and also the fact that I've gone commercial and residential, that balance makes me feel very comfortable, because of the higher cash flow with the commercial at the moment. Gives me a lot of reassurance that I'm creating this cash quite quickly, and should I need it. And then with the residential side, our tenants are paying for everything, and we're getting a small profit out of that as well. So if we just had one or the other, I'd be concerned with the commercial side of things. Recession, you could lose your lease. That person could vacate the premises, and you're left with no income on that one property. And residential wise, if the interest rates go up considerably, and then you sort of actually have a loss every year that you've got to put a little bit of money back into those properties, that property, then you're relying on something else.
A truly fortified portfolio. It's a great example. Leanne, the last two questions from me. In the field of business, there's many parts to it where people consider savings on costs, but also consider return on investment. And this is something you have to think about every day when it comes to business. And now if you apply it to working with our team, I have to be very transparent in saying that, we aren't cheap as a profession to work with. Yet you've placed us as part of your team and trusted us many times over. And there's close to 6 figures in investment with us in fees. Where is the comfort that's come down to feeling comfortable with all of these in working with us, and constantly coming back to us if you break it down to various parts of the journey? Like, where do you feel the big comfort comes for you to go, no, this is my core team and I want to keep going again, and I see return on this investment?
Arjun, the big driver, the first big driver is the style of research you do for each property. And so I feel like that you cover absolutely every aspect that needs to be considered when making a purchase, whether those that information is being, comes to fruition or not, because life evolves. That's irrelevant. The fact that you've had a considered thought process on the entire situation, and you can make an informed decision. And then that sets you up then to deal with any changes or how things evolve down the track. And then also the backup support, especially with everything being new, once we bought the properties, you didn't just disappear. and we had to deal with certain things. Even like 12 months later, I've emailed you saying this has happened. You know, can you just look at this, or what do I need to do here? And then and also, you know, we went down the path of the renovating as well. So you know, the fact that you had the capacity to reach out to people to connect with me, to then be able to work with them to renovate these properties. Yeah, so that's sort of a big driver for me in the value. And then on top of that, like you said, we had some on market, some off market, but the savings that you created in your negotiations on the sale price, the capacity for you to get in and know about sales that may not have been known about. So it's a double whammy. And so, like, the service you provide to me is value for money in what you charge, let alone then the tens of thousands of dollars that you save in the initial purchase as well of the property because of your capacity to negotiate.
Well, Leanne, thank you so much again for all your time, your friendship, and the relationship we have as well on this journey of building a portfolio. It's absolutely been inspirational. Multi 7 figures in holding, 7 figures of equity generated in such a short time, and a 6-figure passive income. This is no doubt just setting up yourself, the family, and achieving many goals along the way. So thank you, and congratulations on all your results.
Thank you, Arjun.